If you're an entrepreneur and you feel like distractions are taking away from your life and your business and are leaving you scattered or stuck or overwhelmed or maybe even burned out and drained, then this video is for you. And if that is you, then I'm guessing you've probably tried various hacks and tactics that you've been given online, but those hacks and tactics never really help you remove distractions for good and solve the problem for good. And the reason I know that is because that was me. I used to be distracted and scattered and was honestly just lost and overwhelmed constantly. But then eventually I got to the root cause and created a fundamental solution, or a solution that is based on, well, fundamentals. And in this video, instead of giving you hacks and tactics, I'm going to give you the fundamental, so the fundamental thing, the fundamental ingredient for getting rid of distractions for good, and then the principle to carry that out, and then the strategy for that. And well, as you can see here, I have one, the fundamental, then the principle, then the strategy. And this will change your understanding. So the way you understand this, the principle will change the way you see this, and the strategy will change the way you act on this. So you will be able to actually properly put this to use. This is not theory. And by the way, because I love transparency, I want to say that when I say that I remove distractions for good, that does not mean I never ever get distracted. Of course, I get distracted from time to time because it's inevitable, right? We're obviously going to get distracted sometimes. But, and so this video is not about never ever getting distracted. It's about removing most of the distractions in our lives, honestly, probably like 95% of them, and knowing how to act on the ones and how to handle the ones that do come up. So let's start first with the fundamental. And well, we'll actually start with a quick story to help you, well, for me to illustrate this for you. And this actually happened just last night. It was Sunday and I decided to go to the beach alone. And it was honestly quite a gloomy and cloudy evening. And it was also dark because the sun had set almost, or at least an hour ago by then. And so I was making my way along the beach and step by step just watching out for the rocks because it's a really rocky beach while looking for a good one to sit on. And it's not really a popular beach exactly because it's near oil rigs and it's also right next to the road. But I wanted to go down just to sit down and just, think about life. And well, thoughts were just racing through my mind constantly, just like the cars on the road. And it seemed like the cars just never stopped because they just kept on coming past constantly. But then suddenly they did stop. And all I heard was silence. And in that moment, I looked out at the water and at the mountains away in the distance. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath and opened them and looked at the sky because some of the clouds were separated and you could see the last of the sunset. And I realized that, well, it felt like I was alone in the world. Aside from a few seagulls away in the distance, I felt like I was alone. And aside from a few ripples in the water and a slight gust of wind, it felt like everything in the world was still. Aside from one thing, and that thing was my face, because I found myself smiling. And the lesson there is that it's not that we lack the clarity or the peace of mind to find happiness or the ability to make meaningful decisions in our lives and grow our business. It's actually that we lack the mental space to notice that those things are right there, right in front of our noses. And in the story, the cars passing by are like the distractions in our lives. And they're stopping us from actually, well, finding and seeing that happiness right in front of us and that peace of mind and that clarity to make meaningful decisions and grow our businesses and improve our lives. And sometimes those thoughts or, those cars are like, they seem to be just racing and maybe even overtaking each other. And other times they're like a big bus that just won't leave your mind. But the thing is that unlike these cars in our lives, we have the power to remove those distractions, or at least to prevent them from coming up in the first place. And the thing is that when it comes to distractions, and once again, I forgot to turn this light on, boom, much better. So when it comes to distractions, the thing about them is that for our ancestors, distractions were quite literally deadly. If you were hunting, or maybe if you were even just picking berries, if you got distracted, very quickly you could become someone's prey. But the thing is that because distractions no longer pose the danger of a sudden death, people nowadays don't realize how deadly distractions are. Because the thing is, the danger nowadays is no longer a sudden death. Instead, it's a slow, inert, and passive death where time just passes by, minute by minute, distraction by distraction. And the really interesting thing is that there's a quote from Nikola Tesla, and, well, it goes like this. He said, "There are too many distractions in this life for quality of thought. And it's quality of thought, not quantity, that counts." And the thing is that he said that over 100 years ago, roughly, when there were no phones, no internet, no TV, no YouTube, no streaming services at all, and yet he said that there were too many distractions in life for quality of thought. And the lesson there is that distractions aren't actually the problem. They're sort of a symptom of the problem. And to explain, yes, of course, the distractions nowadays are, well, there's more of them than ever, and they're also better than ever, so that is more appealing than ever. And so, it's easier to become mindless, but the problem isn't those distractions. The problem is a lack of intention on our end. A lack of intention is what allows those distractions to slip into our lives in the first place. Because those distractions are some external thing. And the reason we get distracted isn't because of some external thing. It's because of, once again, a lack of intention on our end. And so the fundamental thing here is intention. So let me now give you the principle to actually change the way you see this, and so you can actually start acting on this, paired with a strategy. So when it comes to intention, it's very, very similar, and it ties to attention. And, well, start seeing your attention as a currency you spend, because it quite literally is. And there's some kind of fact that goes, each second our conscious mind can only process 50 bits of information per second. But we're not going to get into that because I don't want this video to be complex. Just imagine that each second you have the ability to spend 50 coins, and the currency of these coins is attention. So wherever you direct your attention, you're spending those coins. Except, unlike with our money in real life, we can't save this currency, these coins. We're constantly spilling them. We're constantly directing our attention at something, and time is passing by. And the thing about life is that when it comes to time and attention, we have to be careful with how we spend our time and where we place our attention, because life doesn't do refunds. And the issue is that because of distractions, most people end up spending most of this currency, so their attention, on all the wrong things. And well, imagine that the things that you don't really care about, the meaningless things in your life, are like weeds. Whereas the things that really do matter in your life, like for example, relationships, work, health, all these things, imagine those are flowers, and each one flower represents each one of those things. And imagine that also, instead of needing water and sunlight to grow these plants, you use those coins to grow these plants. Now, the thing is that people are spending their coins, so directing their attention very often on things they don't even care about without even realizing, like doom scrolling on Instagram or TikTok, or spending their time talking about people they don't care about, and they're practically growing these weeds and letting their flowers that they actually do care about die out. Instead of growing their business and focusing on improving their relationships and their health, growing their body and their mind, often we get distracted and we're spending these coins on weeds. And the reason I'm telling you all this is because this ties into this fundamental, which is intention. And to sum it all up, here is the principle. Your life is shaped by where you place your attention, so place it with intention. So basically, to summarize these first two things, you want to be intentional with how you place your attention, because where you place your attention determines the plants or the flowers that you grow in your life. Basically, how you shape your life and what garden you grow in your life. If you grow a garden full of weeds, or if you grow a garden full of beautiful flowers that you really do care about. And let's now lastly move on to the strategy to implement all of this. So you now know that you want to be intentional with how you place your attention. So how do we actually do that? Well, it's using a strategy that I called the ARC strategy. Let me just take a sip of water. Much better. So this strategy that I created is literally the strategy for creating an arc out of anything negative, like this. And ARC stands for, well, it's a mnemonic, so it stands for acknowledge, recalibrate, and commit. Let me quickly run through all of these just briefly, and then I will actually give you a practical real-life example to help you apply this starting today. So first of all, you acknowledge. So whenever a problem comes up, the crucial thing is, whenever you get distracted, so that's the issue, the crucial first thing is awareness. Because if we're not aware of the issue, we can't create any change. We need to be aware in the first place. But the issue is that when people become aware of their issue, they become a judge, and they judge themselves and they feel guilty. But the issue there is that guilt actually creates a downward spiral and causes us to fall into more bad habits. So instead of being a judge, you want to be a detective. And basically, a detective's job is to notice patterns, not to feel guilt. So instead of judging yourself, simply observe. And then ideally, like a detective, note those things down. And I will explain this practically in just a second. And the second thing is that you want to recalibrate. And recalibration is very simply about asking questions. And specifically asking why. Why did this happen? And why did that thing happen? And when you do that, well, you become wiser. I know I've dropped that one before, but I just had to do it again. I apologize. Please forgive me for my bad humor. And then the last thing, C, is commit. And what you need for that is a map. MAP is once again a mnemonic, which stands for motivation, ability, and prompt. And these three things are not random, because the motivation is your why, the ability is the how to actually do it, and the prompt is the what. And well, let me actually explain all this with a practical example. So let's say you sit down in the morning to do deep work, and 15 minutes in you realize that actually, yes, sure, you spent the first 5 minutes getting ready for work, but you've just spent the last 10 minutes being mindless. You got distracted. So the good news is that you're already on step one. You've just acknowledged the issue and you're aware. But remember, our job now is not to feel guilty, because instead you want to say to yourself, okay, well, sure, I was mindless for the last 10 minutes and, well, I got distracted, I wasted my time, but I can't change that now. So you don't feel guilty. Instead, you once again simply observe. You say, okay, I got distracted, and what you want to do is each time you get distracted, you want to note that down. Because what that allows you to do is, over time, you can look at all the things that have distracted you and you can notice patterns. And then once you're aware and you're simply observing rather than judging, the second step is to recalibrate. So basically, once again, that's about asking why. And the reason for this is because when you ask why, you're able to get to the root cause. And the reason people usually don't drop my pen. The reason people usually don't create lasting solutions is because they don't get to the root cause. So the problem keeps coming up. And here's how that might look. So let's say once again you've just been distracted and you spent the last 10 minutes being mindless. So, well, why did that happen? That's the first why. Well, my phone pinged and I checked Instagram and ended up scrolling on Instagram. Okay, second why. So, why did that happen? Well, I never turned off distractions on Instagram because, I don't know, I just didn't want to. I felt like, honestly, I would be missing out. Okay, but why did you feel like you'd be missing out? Well, honestly, I just want to see the people who have been leaving likes and comments on my posts because, yeah, I don't know, it just makes me feel good. And then you can ask why the fourth time. Okay, but why do you need Instagram in order to feel good? Well, honestly, I think that it's because when I was a kid, my older brother got all the attention in the house, and I really never really got much attention, and I suppose now I kind of crave it, and I suppose Instagram gives me that attention and or makes me feel like I do at least. You get where this is going, right? This can go really deep. That's the point there. And you could go even deeper with that. So I would recommend asking why, ideally, at least 5 times. And you will be surprised how deep you can go and what you can find out about yourself and what goes on in your life. And then the third thing, once again, is to commit. So once you've gotten to the root cause, the third thing is to commit. And like I said, in order to commit, you need a map. So basically these three things, and that's the mnemonic once again for motivation, ability, and prompt. Now, when it comes to motivation, you either want to be super honest with yourself as to how much this issue is costing you in your life and how much pain that can cause, and letting that be your motivation. Or if it's not really painful enough, but you still want to create that change, then ideally you want to get some accountability. So either be super honest with yourself and recognize the pain this could cause you that you want to run away from, or create some accountability or find some accountability. And then the second thing, the ability, well, the good thing is that almost all of us know exactly how to remove the distractions in our lives. For example, we can just go into settings and turn the distractions off. Obviously, there are many different kinds of distractions, but this is just the example for the phone. you can go in the settings and turn them off. And then the prompt, well, this video is your prompt. So the prompt is about having something either to remind you to do that thing or to make you aware of it and just to prompt you to do it in the first place. So once again, this video is your prompt. And I really hope that you are able to use this to actually properly start creating some change in your life. If you would like some guidance and help implementing this, or some like-minded people to implement this with, or accountability, then I do have my community linked below. But as always, whatever you decide to do, I wish you all the best. Until next time, ciao.